Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today's guest is talking about culture pain. Are you in a society? Are you in your family in the culture where you feel you do not fit in, and you've made that difficult choice that this culture does no longer fit you? My guest today will talk about just that pain and how she decided to utilize that pain of leaving her family to find her own joy through music. Amanie Ifata is a South Sudanese music artist, model, and creator who incorporates her personal experience growing up as a refugee in South Sudan, fleeing the country for war, to moving over to Canada, to being an outcast in school because she was the only Black kid in school, having to deal with all this pain, to top it off, having to deal with her family pain, where they had a culture the way they thought women should be seen. She left her home when she was 16 to pursue her dreams of being a recording artist, to be a musician. As a refugee in Canada, she delivers powerful messages of empowerment through her music. Her music, though, consists of thought-provoking lyrics that are mixed with R&B slip and fused with rhythm reggae, Afrobeat and tap inspires drum and a combo of her signature clever tune. She's notorious for her thrilling, energetic, and captivating live shows, each consisting of their own charismatic dance segments and teaming with audience interaction. We'll be asking her about her own difficult journey and how she's managed to utilize her voice to find her own joy. Meet my amazing guest, Amanie Illfated, as she shares her wonderful story with us, and hopefully you find some ways to find joy in your own life.
Hola, ni hao, salam, salut, kill, kill, kill. Run to the hills now. Hola, ni hao, salam, salut, kill, kill, kill. Run to the hills now. Hola, ni hao, salam, salut.
Hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. Today's conversation is all about finding your joy, overcoming pain through struggles of life. Have you had to leave your home to go to a new environment, new country, whatever it might be, because you might be fleeing war, you might be fleeing certain circumstances. Then you go to that new country and you also find it's actually difficult to actually fit in that new country, but you still have to find a way to adapt. My guest today will be telling us her journey, how she's managed to overcome all these challenges that life threw at her from a very young age to find her joy. How are you, Amanie?
I am well, thank you.
I was hoping I said your name right. And
Yeah.
I think I did. Is it Amanie?
It's
Amanie.
Amanie.
Amanie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a lot easier to remember. Amanie.
Yeah.
Amanie Carter. That's correct way to say it. Amanie.
Amanie Illfated.
Illfated. Oh wow. Lovely name, by the way.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lovely name for an artist because that really stands out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is such a great name. Before I get started, sort of introduction is all about your life. But before we get started, if someone asks Amanie today, who are you? How would you describe yourself?
I would say that I am a bit of an eccentric person. I love to be just kind of really down to earth, very honest and raw with people. I have a massive passion for music, massive passion for connecting with people and the arts as well.
Do you remember your lifehood when you were much younger? Could you think about it? Because it says here that you left the war in South Sudan, and for anyone who doesn't know, Amanie is originally from South Sudan. She was born there. Do you remember your times in South Sudan? Because you left there at a very young age, but do you remember growing up in South Sudan?
Yeah, I don't remember growing up there very much. And I think that's actually to my benefit because a lot of like the little fragments, the little things that kind of pop up in my mind from here to there. They're not the most pleasant thoughts. So I think that it's a good thing that I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because during that time when you left, I think the reason your family fled from South Sudan to Uganda was to avoid the war that was going on at the time. So in your background growing up, what was childhood like as a child growing up in Africa? What was your childhood like?
So not really a lot of memories from Africa, but in Saskatchewan, where my family wound up moving to, it was a lot of curiosity. Like the first 5 years, curiosity. We had to learn what snow was. We had to learn like the food. We had to learn the language. My parents, one of the interesting things is learning how to use a stove. Learning that you don't put fire on the stove. It's, you just turn the knob and the fire comes. So yeah, it was a lot of curiosity.
You say that, and anyone listening will be like, how old is she? She's so, you're still so young. And this is so recent, and your family was still learning how to use the stove. And people think, did they not have stove back there in Africa? But, we had a traditional way of doing things. And when you come to the West, it's so totally different. It's something you have to get used to. What was school like for you? Did you enjoy school at all?
I didn't enjoy it too much, to be honest. School, although I love like learning was like my favorite part, but the school was like this social thing. So my very first experience going into kindergarten, I had to learn kind of the hard way about racism, because went to a school where there wasn't even a single Black person, and the teachers had no idea how to handle it. The kids had never seen anything like it before, so they all stayed far away. So yeah, it was like interesting trying to adapt to what all the other kids were doing, so that I could try to like get into their circles and at least have one friend. So yeah, that's
Did
the
you find
experience.
did you find a friend in the end? How did you, and what way did you navigate getting a friend, being the only Black girl in the class?
Yeah, with every single school, I actually wound up just kind of going with the people that were, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but they were kind of the outcasts.
Yeah.
So all the other kids didn't want to hang out with them. So I was like, hi, I also am one of you. So I guess we're stuck together now.
It
Yeah.
has to happen. When you look at life, and we always gravitate to people who will receive us so easily, right? Why make the effort? If these guys don't want us, what? Don't make the effort. Find the outcast, and that's a critical thing to do. Rather than coming back and being miserable, look around the room and see who's the other person, and that person could still be white,
Yeah.
but who is the other person who they are picking up? Because as much as sometimes it could be the Black against the white, but there's sometimes within the white clique there is also the arguments going on, which you could actually pick on it and say, okay, this argument is going on, they don't want to talk to her, I better use advantage, and that's the right strategy to go about it.
Yeah.
You said you felt suppressed by your family's culture, because I mean, being from Africa, I mean, our culture can be very intense, and you didn't fit in being the only Africa at school at times. When you said your family's culture, what do you mean by that?
So this is something I kind of discovered in the years that I've been kind of, doing my healing process. So my grandfather was a polygamist. He had two wives, and with each wife, there was at least a dozen children. So one of the reasons why he had multiple wives is because it's prestigious to have more than one wife in that culture. And the expectation for a wife is basically you drop everything and your husband is the person that you serve. So my mom had to go into that mentality. My aunt had to go into that mentality. Everybody pretty much went into that mentality. The men played into it too, because, they wanted to have as many wives as possible. Fortunately, my dad didn't subscribe to that, but, with my mom, she had this expectation that she had to be a wife, take care of the kids, do the things in the house. So that all got passed down to me. And the expectation for me was to kind of sit down, be quiet, wait till you get married, go out, be a good wife, bring some grandchildren home, and the process starts again.
Yeah.
So, when I presented the idea of, hi, I want to do music and I want to be on stage dancing and I want to travel the world and I maybe don't want to get married until maybe I'm like 40, that was like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's so typical because it's not our typical culture to want to have our kids doing music, and it's such an artistic thing. It's so beautiful. We love to listen to music. South Sudanese, for example, where you're from, they're so cultural and they dance a lot. And we wonder why don't our parents want us to engage in that? So at 16, you decided to take matters into your own hands. You left your family to pursue music in Toronto. How did you make that difficult decision to say, you know what, I really believe in what I'm talking about. I know this is for me. I have to take on that big leap of faith and go pursue it.
Yeah, so I already knew that it was going to be that leap of faith. It didn't matter if I did it at 5 years old or if I did at 50, it was going to happen regardless. And I was already really kind of happy developing myself just in Saskatchewan. It's just the situation with my family just got really, 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 really toxic. So it got to this point where I was thinking, like my life is already kind of in danger here. So it sounds really harsh. It's like it's either they're going to kill me or I'm going to wind up killing myself if I stay here. So either or, I'm going to wind up dying here if I stay. So I thought to myself, like, you know what? I'd rather, if I'm going to wind up dying in any scenario, it's going to be doing what it is that I love. And Toronto just, popped up when I saw Nelly Furtado's story and she left Vancouver to come to Toronto. So I was like, everybody seems to be doing this, pilgrimage to Toronto. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And if I fail there, fine. At least I took a step. Yeah.
At least you tried.
Mhm.
And you've been doing this for almost 15 years since moving to Toronto. You are now a successful artist. For example, you've recorded with so many of the most famous people. You sing at festival. Could you tell me, how did you find your way at such a tender age of 16? Navigate yourself through a big city. Toronto is, when people hear Toronto, it's not like it's a small city.
Yeah.
Big city. So how did you navigate your way and was able to really start finding and developing and making your passion reality?
Yeah, so I had two people that really, really, solidified me here. So my aunt, I wound up staying with her when I was here. So she kind of took care of that home front for me, learning how to figure out the city. And one of the best things that she did was just kind of like, literally like, a little chickling in a nest, just like pushed me out and said, go, like, go get on a subway that you've never seen before and just figure it out. If you get lost, find a payphone and call me. So that really, like, it was scary at first, but I was so up for the challenge. And I just kind of wound up, sitting on a bus for like 3-4 hours, looking at the city, trying to figure out where everything is. And, that kind of encouragement was what got me to like just go to an event, even if I'm by myself and I don't know who is there or what's there, just go and figure it out when you get there. So she pushed me to do that. And then the other person was Mr. Gladwell at my high school. So the story with the high school is that the postal code that I wound up staying, my aunt's postal code, made it so that I had to go to a specific school. And the guidance counselor told me that there wasn't any music at that school and it was a uniform school. So I was like, this is already awful. I don't want to be here. But there was this really cool kid in the class who was like, hey, you do music. What if I told you that there's a music class here? So I literally put my hand up and I'm like, hi, I need to go use the washroom, to the English teacher. And she's like, sure. And I went straight to the guidance counselor and told him, like, you have music at this school. You need to let me go. And he's like, oh, I wasn't going to tell you, but. And it was a digital music production class by Mr. Gladwell. So I had to, because I was already really behind in grades, so I had to prove to him that I was worthy of this class. And within half an hour, he's like, okay, I think you're more advanced. So I'll have you here. And I just kind of helped him and helped him and helped him throughout the classroom with other kids. I was staying there almost like 6-7 hours a day. And yeah, he really, really helped because, he had the studio there and he's like, you can use it whenever you need to. We have all the programs here. We have everything here. So whenever you need it, just come in and use it. And he really encouraged me to get into the industry. I used to do power talks with him. Like when someone's like, come to my studio, I'd be like, okay, this person's asking. He's like, watch out for this and watch out for that, So yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful story. Then how did you turn that to music? How did you start getting your name recognized and more people, how did you go from high school music and now all of a sudden you were becoming a success story?
Yeah, so I used the music that that I created in that class just to kind of show to people. So once I left high schools, sending out the demo to people, and I started with the labels, which was really terrible, but yeah, it started there. It wasn't working, and then I met some club promoter who goes by the name Milk, Lawrence Milk. And he's just like, you know what, like you're struggling here. Let me help you with whatever I can. So I said, like I need a photo shoot for my album cover. And he said, oh, I have the perfect person. So he took me to a photographer. That photographer took a photo of me and he wasn't like buying it. He was just like, okay, really, do I have to do this? He took the photo. I posted the photos on Facebook. Next thing you know, all these other photographers were like, hey, like, can we shoot with you? So next thing I knew, I had like 10 photo shoots in 1 month. And then people started paying attention to the photo shoots, which, I kind of pivoted to like, oh, by the way, I do music.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, and you do music. So then they gravitated to the music. And then next thing you know, I had, producers, studio managers saying, hey, come here and, record here. And then the festival started. And then, yeah,
That's
just kind of history.
Wow, that's amazing. What was it like sharing the stage with, big artists such as P Square? You did something with Corby Town. What was it like sharing that stage with these guys?
Well, kind of surreal, to
Yes.
be honest. It's always surreal when I get to go to these events and, I meet the people that I was listening to kind of like on my iPod 10 years ago. I remember I had like a really massive shock with like Dynamic, who is like a massive South Sudanese artist. And, he recommended my name for a show in the US. And just to see him, it's like he's performing. And not only is he performing, but he also asked me to come here to perform. It was like, whoa, this is like in my dreams or something.
Yes. That's the life. Life is so funny. It just things. As long as you keep going towards your dreams, it just happens one day. And it's not. I say to people, as long as you're focused and consistent, then things just miraculously happen. What joy do you receive when you hear music being played at various international radio shows? What joy do you just receive just hearing your music?
It's the same surreal feeling.
Mm.
And I don't know, like sometimes I feel like it's not a real like joy. It's more like this curiosity again, where I'm like, wow, I wonder who is listening to this right now and who's like happy listening to this right now. Because I think the musical journey, when I say like connecting, I love watching the expression on people's faces. That to me is like the ultimate reason as to why I do music. Because yes, it brings me joy, but it brings me even more joy when I see someone who maybe never danced before or they didn't want to dance ever, and then suddenly they're just like, okay, I guess I'm going to dance to this. Or someone who maybe went through a really rough time and then they play the song and they're like, whoa, that line right there, that's my story for this year. And it's like, wow, that's what brings me the joy. So when I hear it on international radio stations, I sit there and I'm just so curious as to like, who's listening and, what are they thinking? What is their facial expression right now,
Yeah, well, it's like the facial expression will be like something like mine right now, because I listen to some of your music and it's truly amazing. The way you sing, you bring out so much joy. And one thing I must say about your work is that you mix the R&B, Afrobeats, you mix them all together, and you make it, you have your way of speaking to people, because you talk about messages. So what kind of messages do you convey in your music?
Yeah, so I try to mix as much as possible. It's usually just like, all my producers will be able to say that when I walk into the studio, there's a mood. So it could be, you know, a happy mood, a bad mood. It's not like I'm taking it out on them. It's just when I come in, it's like, I'm really angry today. So I need this, this, and this, and this played out like this. And then they start it. Um, yeah. So when I have those moods, I want to convey it as much as possible in a way that is still personal and true to me. But, you know, a woman or a man could, or, you know, any person could be sitting there and listening and saying, yeah, this is exactly what I'm going through right now. Like, yes, it's her breakup, or yes, it's her happiest day, but for some reason it feels like my happiest day or my breakup. Yeah, so that's how I write it and present it.
Well, so where have your work been showcased? If any, if there's so many festivals, music festivals around the world, especially in Canada, for example, they have so many of them. Where have you showcased some of your work?
Well, some of my favorite places that my music has been showcased is the African Descent Festival. I got to do one song, super happy to do that there. And then over here in Toronto, it's like all the Afrofest. That was like a very big one for me. I did that one this year. And then, you know, Batuki Music Festival, Habari Music Festival. On the international front, I partnered with South Sudan Unite. And then in the UK, it's really interesting. I haven't performed there, but for some reason, like Glasgow picked up a few of my songs, which I never thought the music would ever go there. So it's, you know, showcased there. In Thailand, you know, they kept me on circulation there. Of course, in Juba, and then Costa Rica, which I was supposed to do before the pandemic hit, a show there, but they've been presenting my music there, in Brazil. So it's pretty much everywhere. Yeah.
And you know, when you look back at your life, everything you've achieved, because you decided to make that vital step to leave home, you said, I know this is not for me. I need to do something. Any young girl listening right now will be wondering, going through, saying, just think about the 15 years ago when you were going through that difficult phase. Any young girl or boy who's listening right now, what would your message of hope be to that child, that individual?
So what I would say is it's two things. So one, your trauma doesn't make you. You can use your trauma to make something. Um, so like for me, going through like, you know, pretty much 16 years of trauma, 16 years of chaos, 16 years of abuse, you know, at some point when I did the move, I was thinking to myself, like, maybe that's just going to be my life. Maybe my whole life is just going to be this trauma, and it's going to take me forever to get over it. And by then I'll never get my career. So I'd always say, just like, it's use that trauma to get to where it is that you need to be. Don't let it take over your mind and you know, become you. And then the other thing is just to be able to, the one thing that you know, with my aunt and with Mr. Gladwell, is that they pushed me, you know, to go and do things. It wasn't like a big push, like I wasn't going to do it, but you know, I was already going to do it. But it was great to hear them say, just go. So what I would say to people is just, you know, let yourself be free, let yourself go, take on the challenges, and don't be afraid to fail. You know, just let the failure happen. And then once, you know, you finish with that, you know, you dust yourself off, and then you go back and try something else, fail at that, and you're going to fail 99 times, but that one time you're going to get it.
Amanie, thank you so much. But I have to ask you this question before I let you go. Is this, what next for you? And South Sudan has not had that beautiful reputation that any African country will have, or any country in Africa tends to have. They have this reputation of the war, so people don't have this nice image about her. What would your advice be to people who might want to go back to Africa, or South, particularly South Sudan, one day? And what next for you?
Yeah, so on the South Sudan front, yes, the war has kind of, you know, destroyed a lot of lives there. But like you were saying, when you went back, it's changed a lot. There's been so many different changes. A lot of people are now more open to things. So there's this positive thing that's starting to happen, and it's not going to happen in the next, you know, 5 years, 10 years even. It's going to happen gradually. But for people who are in the diaspora, kind of looking in, it's like, don't be afraid to try and go back in. Yes, they may reject you. I mean, a couple of times I've been rejected because they say I'm not South Sudanese enough, but it's like, you still have to try, you still have to reach out, and we all have something to contribute. to the country to make it better. It's not going to get just better by itself. It's up to us and it's up to them to cooperate together to make it better. I know on my part, working with a lot of different artists, different organizations to try to build up the music scene there, so that the youth that are starting to do music can have at least the equipment or just even the advice on how to register your songs, or even just the mentoring that's needed to get them into the mindset. Like Mr. Gladwell was my mentor, so now I can go and contribute that to the youth there. And on my front, I'm working on a new album called Divine, which is going to be a mixture of English and Arabic Juba. So this one is kind of getting dedicated to South Sudan via my mother, who, as I mentioned, she had to follow this specific norm and I didn't have to follow it. So I'm kind of dedicating this to her so that she can listen and she can have some fun with it. And people in South Sudan can listen and also have some fun with it. And we can all just kind of learn to heal and grow together.
Would you be going to Juba to release it and release the single?
Yes, we're aiming for February, end of February, to be able to do that. So it's going to be just before the album release. So I think they might get, a week advance of listening to the track, but I think it works. It works perfectly.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you. And
Yeah.
anyone who is trying to wants to listen to your music, where can they find your music right now?
Yeah, so you can find my music on Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much all the streaming services. Everything is listed on my website, www.amanieillfated.com. So that's AMANIEILLFATED.
Beautiful name. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you so much.